Imagine a world where the elected leader of a nation, the President of the United States, could not simply waltz into a facility built, funded, and maintained by their own government, a place so critical, so deeply classified, that even the commander-in-chief required specific, pre-approved clearance just to set foot inside. This isn't the plot of some dystopian novel. This was Mount Weather, a subterranean labyrinth nestled deep within the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, its existence publicly acknowledged only after a tragic plane crash in 1974. A TWA Flight 514, veering off course in a storm, slammed into the mountain just yards from the facility's perimeter. That crash sparked a congressional hearing, revealing what was then dubbed America's secret government. But that's just the surface, isn't it? The public story of a bunker for continuity of government. A place where the lights stay on when the world above goes dark. It's the kind of simplistic narrative you get from a pamphlet, not a declassified file. Because the reality of Mount Weather isn't about mere survival. It's about a cold, calculated blueprint for a world after the world, a chilling testament to humanity's foresight for its own extinction event. It's about a parallel governance preordained, waiting to rise from the ashes, while the rest of us, well, we just crumble. And the more you dig, the more you realize it's not just a bunker, it's an entire philosophy.
Mount Weather, officially designated as the High Point Special Facility, traces its operational origins to the early 1950s, a direct strategic response to the existential threat of nuclear war. Its initial mandate under the Federal Civil Defense Administration was to serve as a command and control center for civilian agencies during a national emergency. However, its true significance transcended simple emergency coordination. It evolved into the nexus for a decentralized shadow government, a complete functional apparatus designed to operate indefinitely post-cataclysm. The facility's design is robust, multiple layers of reinforced concrete, blast doors designed to withstand multi-megaton yields, and an independent power grid capable of sustaining thousands for extended periods. Water purification, air filtration, extensive food stores, all standard for any deep bunker. What differentiates Mount Weather is the deliberate complexity of its human component. The personnel housed within were not merely administrative staff. They were selected and trained for specific roles in a post-apocalyptic administrative framework.
Selected and trained. That's a crucial distinction, isn't it? It wasn't just about getting high-ranking officials to safety. It was about creating a functional, albeit skeletal, replica of the entire federal infrastructure ready to be activated. But here's where the official narrative starts to fray. The idea of a designated leadership group is one thing, but the sheer scale of the operation, the very nature of the continuity of government exercises that have been conducted there, they suggest something far more intricate than just a president in waiting.
Indeed, postmortems of various Cold War exercises, some declassified in fragmentary form, indicate a profound and troubling disconnect between public assurances and internal planning. For instance, the RRX-84 exercise in 1984, a continuity of government drill, hypothesized a domestic crisis necessitating military control and the suspension of the Constitution. While the official explanation involved national opposition and disruptive elements, the underlying mechanisms developed were applicable to any large-scale societal breakdown. These exercises, though framed as preparations for external threats, often contain modules for internal population management and control. The legal frameworks for such a transition, including executive orders suspending various civil liberties, were meticulously drafted. Furthermore, the criteria for who would occupy Mount Weather were never solely based on current cabinet positions. There was a parallel, pre-selected cohort of individuals, civil servants, technologists, even economists, who were specifically designated. They were often referred to as non-designated survivors by those outside the inner circle, but within the system, they were merely essential personnel. The implication being that their professional function was deemed more critical to the resuscitation of governance than their existing political status. This system allowed for a profound bypass of established democratic processes, ensuring a specific, predetermined skill set survived. The selection process was opaque, often carried out years in advance, based on criteria that were never publicly disseminated. It wasn't about rescuing the government, but rather a particular idea of governance.
So, it wasn't just a matter of saving the president and his cabinet. It was about constructing an entirely separate, self-sustaining administrative entity with its own pre-selected personnel, its own protocols, its own vision for a post-apocalyptic world. An entity that could operate entirely independently, accountable to nobody in the conventional sense. This isn't just contingency planning. It's a parallel state waiting to emerge. It begs the question, how much of our everyday federal government structure is merely a front for this deeper, more resilient framework?
The operational overlap is substantial. Agencies like FEMA, initially the Federal Emergency Management Agency, were conceived with dual roles, often bridging the gap between conventional disaster response and the more esoteric continuity of government protocols. Early iterations of these plans included the establishment of regional shadow capitals, each with its own designated leadership cadre and logistical support. Mount Weather was the central node, but the network extended across the country, linked by secure, hardened communication lines. The existence of these shadow infrastructure elements suggests a deeply embedded understanding that conventional governance is inherently fragile, whereas the underlying administrative functions, the gears of the state, must persist regardless of societal collapse. Consider the Doomsday Planes, the E-4B National Airborne Operations Centers. While publicly presented as mobile command posts for the president, they also serve as communication hubs for this distributed shadow government, capable of linking Mount Weather with other hardened facilities and scattered personnel, even in a communication-degraded environment. Their primary function isn't just to keep the president alive, it's to ensure the system remains interconnected, allowing the chosen administrators to exert control and coordinate resources, no matter the scale of devastation on the surface. They are the nervous system of the apparatus, not merely a life raft for a single figurehead. The entire architecture points to a pre-engineered succession, not merely a spontaneous recovery.
A pre-engineered succession. The phrase itself is chilling. It implies a level of determinism that strips away any illusion of popular will or even adaptable leadership in crisis. It suggests a fixed template for the future, decided long before any actual catastrophe. But what kind of world were these planners envisioning? What kind of society would such a shadow government govern? Because if you're planning for the worst and you're building a system to survive it, you're also defining the parameters of what comes next. And for the vast majority of people, those parameters didn't include them.
Precisely. The operational directives, as interpreted from declassified planning documents and insider accounts, reveal a stark utilitarian vision. The primary objective was not societal reconstruction in a democratic sense, but rather the maintenance of order and the allocation of severely limited resources. The concept of martial law was not a temporary measure, but an assumed default state for the initial post-cataclysmic period. The focus was on population management, resource control, and the suppression of civil unrest among the non-survivors, those left outside the bunkers. The very training regimes for Mount Weather personnel underscored this. They weren't trained in diplomacy or consensus building. They were trained in crisis management, logistical control, and enforcement. There's a particularly disturbing anecdote from a former insider, now deceased, regarding an internal debate about the post-crisis currency system. Not whether there would be one, but what form it would take. The consensus wasn't a return to traditional money, but a centralized ration-based credit system managed directly by the reconstituted administrative state. The underlying philosophy was absolute control over essential goods and services, ensuring compliance through necessity. It eliminates markets, it eliminates free exchange. It's a complete economic reset, not a recovery. This level of granular planning for a completely altered societal structure speaks volumes about the vision for this new world. It wasn't about freedom or democracy. It was about functional survival and absolute centralized authority.
Functional survival, absolute authority. It's a vision that implies a profound mistrust in the very people these leaders are supposed to serve. It's not just preparing for an apocalypse. It's almost preparing for a kind of societal re-engineering under the guise of emergency. The thought that such a system has been meticulously designed, with its own designated survivors, its own economic blueprint, its own mechanisms of control, it shifts the very ground beneath our feet. We're not just looking at a bunker anymore. We're looking at a parallel reality that has always existed, silently observing, silently planning for a future where our current norms are entirely irrelevant. And that future, ironically, is one they have helped to define, not just react to.
The scope extends beyond mere federal administration. Documents related to Project LLF, the extremely low-frequency communication system, provide another layer of insight. This network, designed to communicate with submerged submarines, was also considered a critical backup communication channel for the Mount Weather system, capable of penetrating deep underground and surviving atmospheric disruption. Its existence underscores the absolute necessity of maintaining command and control, regardless of the scale of global disruption. The implications are profound. It suggests that the planning isn't just for a national emergency, but for a globally fragmented, deeply unstable environment where the few remaining bastions of power need to communicate without reliance on conventional, vulnerable infrastructure. This is not about rebuilding the world as we know it. It is about establishing a new order from a position of fortified, premeditated authority. The scale of the investment, the secrecy, the duration of these programs, it all points to a deeply ingrained institutional belief in the inevitability of this reset and the necessity of managing its aftermath according to a predefined schema. The very existence of Mount Weather, in its expanded conceptual form, is a tacit admission that conventional governance is inherently temporary, a fragile veneer over a deeper, more brutal reality that the powerful are constantly preparing for.
And that's the lingering dread, isn't it? It's not just a facility, not just a plan. It's a foundational belief system within the highest echelons of power that the current world, our world, is inherently unstable, ephemeral. That its collapse is not a possibility, but an eventuality for which a select few must be prepared, not to restore what was lost, but to build something entirely new, entirely controlled from the rubble. Mount Weather is just a bunker. It's a chilling physical manifestation of a cold, calculated readiness for a predetermined future, a future where our history, our democracy, our very way of life are nothing more than casualties in a plan for what comes after. And the people who designed it, who staff it, who live with this knowledge, they exist among us. Their plan, their shadow government, lies beneath us, waiting.